Hello and welcome to this month's the PropTech Panel. The PropTech Panel is a monthly Learn at Lunch webinar brought to you by the PropTech Association Australia. It's the fourth Tuesday of every month. We do it live at 12 p.m. and we always theme it to explore one particular aspect of property technology in more depth. And today we're talking about design technology. I'd like to thank Stone & Chalk for being a foundation supporter of the PropTech Association Australia and also for being our event partner today. If you don't know Stone & Chalk, it's an accelerator with facilities in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide, and some 20 or more PropTechs call Stone & Chalk home. Very excitingly, Stone & Chalk has been chosen by the New South Wales State Government to manage the new scale-up hub down at Tech Central that will be opening in July. There is still some space available. If you're interested, please find out more on the Stone & Chalk website, or you can reach out to Mary Ann Lampertang, who's the General Manager of Stone & Chalk in Sydney, and she's also the Treasurer of the PropTech Association. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm sitting on country traditionally owned by the Walla medical people of the Darug Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. On behalf of the PropTech Association, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of country and First Nations people all across Australia and acknowledge their connections to land, sea and community. Today, we're talking about design technology. We're talking about the really cool tech tools that can help you understand the potential of a piece of land. What can you build there? The first question is, what is already there? What's the lie of the land and what's the existing condition of any structures? Your next question is, what is it actually possible? And moreover, what is it actually feasible to build? What could you actually get planning permission for? What could you actually get financing for? And lastly, and possibly even more importantly, the design technology tools we're going to learn about today are the foundations for 3D digital twins and technological tools that can help you project manage your construction and become a central hub for you to manage your asset going forward. We're going to encounter probably quite a few acronyms today, which the panel will help us demystify. So let's meet the guests. My first guest today is Simon Cooks, who is the founder and CEO of LARKI. Welcome to the panel, Simon. How are you today?
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. Really great to be here. Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us. And where are you joining us?
It's the Sydney Startup Hub at the moment. So just below you guys at Stone & Chalk.
Perfect. Thank you. My second guest today is Mohsen Kalantari, who is a co-founder of Faramoon. Mohsen, welcome to the panel. How are you today?
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. I'm good, thank you.
And where are you joining us from?
I'm joining today from Sydney, but our office is in Melbourne. Head office is in Melbourne, the Melbourne Connect building in the University of Melbourne.
And my third guest today is Anycie Barakat, who is Head of Generative Design at Archistar. Anycie, welcome to the panel. How are you?
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for having us. I'm good. Thank you. I'm good.
And where are you joining us from?
We're from Sydney today.
Perfect. Okay, Simon, let's start with you. Can you please explain in a nutshell, tell us about Laki, give us your elevator pitch.
Laser scans of neighbourhoods, streets, buildings. So this is LiDAR, one of the first acronyms off the bat. So it's, data basically of your site that we provide through an online platform. So it's with a 3D viewer. So it's a SaaS, not an acronym there. So software as a service component. And it's really for property developers and architects that need to do site measurements and do them potentially remotely and also affordably and fast. Compared to a traditional 2D land survey, we provide a 3D survey, but not only being 3D, it's much better resolution. So up to 300,000 times better resolution, 8 times better value and 700 times faster. So it's really saving architects and property developers weeks and many thousands of dollars off their overall project costs.
Okay. So let's understand a little bit more about the problem you're solving for. What are some of the challenges that architects and property developers and other people might face if they were working from a 2D drawing and photos, for example, and not availing themselves of the 3D technology?
Yeah, I'll give you an example of a property developer. So they're primarily interested in return on investment, and to get that return on investment, they really need to understand every cubic centimeter of their site so that they can work out what size of development is actually going to fit on their site. And to do this, they'll get architects to help them to do massing studies, and then that will feed into a feasibility study for them. But really they need to do it affordably, because what they can get from the sales at the end of the development minus their costs, of which surveying and collecting that information is one of those costs, that equals their profit or return. So they want to do things affordably, but they also want to do things fast, because if they're making a decision on buying a property, they have to make that decision really quickly, or even throughout the course of the development, they also need to do things fast, because the longer they do something, the more holding costs there is, which eats into their profit margin. It's about getting detailed site information really affordably and fast, but they can't. So currently they'll have to send out a land surveyor, and that might, even for a really small property that kind of starts from around $2,000, might take them a minimum of 2 weeks. But then they still don't have enough information. So the architect will have to go out on site and do measurements. I'm an architect myself, and I've been in situations where I've, had to precariously climb a fence or hang off the side of a building to take a dimension. And even during COVID, physically couldn't get to site to do those dimensions. So that's a real kind of problem that we're trying to address with Laki.
Yeah, fantastic. And can you tell us some more about what is a 3D point cloud? What can you do with a 3D point cloud that you just can't do with, for example, a photo? Because I think some people who may not be familiar with them might think, well, it's just a picture, for example.
Yeah, a 3D point cloud is effectively the output file from a 3D laser scanner. Architects, property developers, we're all working in this 3D world that is reality. And so it makes sense that 98% of architects use 3D design tools, be it ArchiCAD, one of those kind of sophisticated design tools. So it makes sense that they get that information in 3D. So yeah, so that's what a point cloud is. But what we do uniquely is we get point cloud files that have been captured from laser scanners that are attached to planes, from cars driving past, drones, and mounted on tripods. So we're aggregating all these different data from various suppliers, and such that we can provide it in that really high resolution, really affordable and fast way, but then also providing it in this web viewer and platform, so that our customers can order it, pay for it, track, if we've got to send out a team to know when the data is going to be available, and download it and view it all online. So it's a completely kind of web-based experience now.
So does that mean you don't actually even need to go to visit the site?
Yeah, exactly. We've got a customer who is an architect in Chile in South America, and the property that they're designing for is in Sydney. The client met this architect when they were still in Sydney. COVID happened, they went back to Chile, but they continued that. They were still able to do that job because they could use our data from wherever they were in the world, because everyone's got internet connection these days.
That's a great example of how architects potentially can actually expand their business.
Oh yeah, it's the kind of gig economies is happening the world over, and your physical location is no impediment to doing work anymore, particularly when you're using this really high resolution data, because previously, like a 2D feature survey, you wouldn't be able to do the job with that level of information, because you only can squeeze about 100 site data points on a piece of paper. And then because it's a drawing, like the surveyors are essentially drawing dot to dot, and the architect needs to kind of, or any kind of stakeholder, whether it be planner, building owner, objector, like all of the engineer, they all need to interpret that information, and it's quite hard to interpret. Whereas a point cloud is, there's so many dots, millions and millions of them, that when you look at it, it looks like a grainy photograph. So it's how you experience the world anyway. So it, picture tells 1,000 words. I mean, in our case, the picture tells 30 million words, but it's all measurable. So to your question earlier about the photo, you can't measure photos. Architects would do things like count bricks. Maybe about 1, 2, 3, 4, times by 89 equals roughly whatever height, but it's a complete waste of time to do that for every single windowsill or parapet height or whatever. Whereas now you can jump in on the Laki platform, order some data, it arrives in your platform in an hour, and then you can be doing whatever dimensions you want, whether it be the sag of a power line, an Australian height datum, AHD height of a leaf on a tree if you want. Like, it's really detailed.
Yeah, and I can imagine you're just not going to get the best out of 3D design tools if the data you're ingesting isn't 3D.
Yeah, quality in, poor quality out. So yeah.
So tell us more about Laki and your client base and how you go to market. Do you have an ideal customer, and what's your approach to going to market?
Yeah, we've been doing the 3D scanning ourselves. We've got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and tripod-based drones, and so tripod-based laser scanners and drone-based scanning equipment, and staff in Melbourne and Sydney. So we've been capturing and converting this data into like building information modeling BIM files for customers for over 5 years now. And during that time, we've really learned what the kind of pain points are, and also grown our customer base. So now we've built the platform. We raised some funds last year, and we've used that to build this platform that enables our customers to get and manage that and pay for and share that and collaborate with that information more readily. And so we're converting those kind of customers into SaaS subscribers now. But yeah, we also do, a lot on Instagram and LinkedIn and other content marketing, referrals, etc., to grow the top of funnel.
What kind of positive feedback are you getting from the market? And is there any particular testimony or feedback you've received that made you particularly?
We've got some testimonials that have words like wow and waha, WOOHAA exclamation mark, which is pretty cool. So yeah, a lot of people saying, oh, game changer, and where were you 5 years ago when I got pulled into litigation because of site context information and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we've got some top tier clients, JLL, Deakin University, Alfred Hospital, John Wardle, current gold medal winners. We're doing 22 towers for Victorian State Government at the moment. So yeah, so but really the ideal customer is any site that has site complexity. And I would argue that anywhere in a city or suburb would have some level of site complexity, be it heritage detail, be it rocks, trees, power lines, anything like, if you've got anything like that in and around your site, then we'll be able to help.
Have you discovered any kind of unexpected or ancillary use cases or benefits? Any clients that you wouldn't have thought would be interested in purchasing from you but have?
Yeah, we've been selling a lot of stuff to, say, like churches and schools, which is bang on what we're looking at. But some ancillary ones is we've got customers that are doing like 5G rollouts, so like telco engineers. One that is becoming more of a thing is traffic engineers or builders that are trying to work out clearances for delivering things. We did one the other day, which we sold 8 kilometre stretch of road because they needed to deliver this massive piece of equipment off a freeway and needed to make sure they were going to clear power lines and bridges and that kind of thing. I just saw in the news. I used to work in Melbourne. I'm based in Sydney now, but I used to work in Melbourne in near City Road there. And every 6 months or so, we'd hear this almighty whack, and we'd run out the office and see this truck on its side because it's hit the underpass. And so it's quite common that trucks and delivery kind of equipment hit things. And obviously in one of those instances while I was working there, someone died. It's pretty severe when these things happen. So you want to avoid them. And we can provide data for as low as $150 for a small bit of road. It's definitely worth the investment rather than killing someone.
No, absolutely. When technology can avoid human beings having to be placed at risk, that's fantastic testimony to PropTech, whether that's people not having to go on roofs and risk falling from height, or people not having to go, closer than they should to power lines and things of that nature. That's wonderful to hear. What is coming up for Laki for the rest of the year? Is there anything particularly exciting on the product roadmap that you can share with us?
Yeah, so there's kind of 4 main components of Laki. So there's this high-res 2D map. Even though we're in a 3D company, it's still used for 2D. And so we've got high-resolution aerial imagery that architects can do. We're building up the tool base there so they can do things like master planning, things like that. In terms of the back-end kind of point cloud engine, I suppose you could call it. We're making it more, the data more accurate. We're cleaning it. We're making it more useful and faster to acquire. So that's improving all the time. But also some working on making the data more collaborative with the 3D, making it easier for people to share views and work collaboratively, and like trying to go deeper into the survey industry and not just have surveyors as partners, but also to be able to provide them with data and the software to help them do what they do. And that includes platforms like Archistar. So we're talking to platforms like Archistar to provide this kind of high resolution, but also affordable data to other platforms as well.
Thank you. We love it so much when PropTechs work with other PropTechs. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for telling us more about Laki, Simon.
Thanks, Jennifer. Really appreciate it.
Mohsen, let's have a chat about Faramoon. Can you please give us your elevator pitch?
Jennifer, Faramoon automates the creation of digital twins for the architecture, engineering, and construction. Creating digital twins is time-consuming, costly, because there's a lot of manual intervention and manual modeling and editing needs to be done on the source data. So we automate that process.
Perfect. So can you tell us a little bit more about the problem you're solving for on these manual challenges? What challenges would people have to overcome if your solution wasn't available?
Laser scanning, as Simon mentioned, is the main source or the prominent source currently for creating digital twins. So you use different types of technologies. We focus on indoor modeling, creating digital twins for indoors of the building. For say a residential building, 1 story, 2 story, or even a 4-story building, you can use a handheld laser scanner and scan the building in an hour or so, so 1 hour, 2 hours. But creating digital twins or converting that point cloud into a useful data 3D model generally can take up to 80 hours, depending on what level of detail you want from that building. So we address that problem. So we address that gap currently in industry, where our software, the technology that we have developed, can take the indoor model of a building and indoor point cloud of a building and create a 3D model with a bottom of a click. Click of a button, sorry.
Perfect. Can you tell us a little bit more about what have you built with this technology? How long did it take? And how have you built it?
Yes, I wear another hat. I'm an academic with Melbourne University and a faculty member of School of Engineering. I will be joining University of New South Wales from June. As part of the research that we've been doing in my research group, we've been dealing with a lot of different types of scanning technologies, and we identified this problem that if you want to create or extract information from laser scan data, useful information that Simon was referring to, for the architects to be useful, because the point cloud itself is not useful. You can make measurement, you can measure dimensions of the point cloud, but there's more potential, there's more you can do with point cloud, and you can extract information. And that was where we started working on a research project, how we can automate extraction of information from point clouds. In fact, we started with extracting floor plans from point cloud data, but then our technology or the research was able to create 3D models from point clouds. So there was also a demand for it in the market, talking to back then a few surveying companies, and then we decided to embark on commercialization of this research outcome.
Can you tell us a little bit more about who are your customers? Do you have an ideal customer, and what's your go-to-market approach?
Yes, we target 3 groups, if you like, that 3 groups in the architecture, engineering, construction that deal with point clouds or laser scan data. One is the surveying and mapping industry. They obviously provide point clouds to their client, and sometimes the client wants the 3D model from the point cloud. So we provide services to them, but not all surveying mapping companies do that. Generally, the bigger companies which can afford the digital laser scanning technologies, these are generally medium-sized surveying mapping companies. Architecture companies also, they are the early adopters, those that are innovators. For example, we work with an architect company in the UK. They do many scans per week. So basically, laser scanning is part of their workflow, so standard workflow. For every building that they renovate, they need to have this digital twin. So that is very well embedded in their process. Also, there is drafting companies, or we call them modeling houses, which generally are in the countries with lower labor costs in Southeast Asia, India. And we also provide services to them because we can automate the creation of the point cloud. So although they do a lot of manual processing on our data, but still we add value to their workflows.
And what kind of positive feedback have you been getting from the market?
Look, the positive feedback, I guess, is that there is more demand for the automation. So every time we present our product, they say, can you do this? Can you do that? Even to the extent that sometimes some of the companies that work in asset management, they even ask us, can you map behind the walls and all the services, etc. And I say, look, we are not in the mapping business, but laser scanning cannot do that. There are other technologies that can do it. So there are many buildings, as you would appreciate, that not only they don't have the floor plans currently or the blueprints, they also lack the data about the services in the building. So these asset management companies, companies that manage the buildings, they are also not only interested in the architecture and design of the buildings, but also in what's available in terms of the services. So that's another interesting, if you like, feedback that we receive. But obviously, we don't have that technology, and the LiDAR technology, that the data that we process doesn't have that capability.
Yes, I think it's a somewhat common frustration for people who work in the startup world, in that often when you're explaining to people what you do, they're like, that's great, but could you also do something that's an extension or a different? And a little bit, I was hoping you'd buy what I've already built, but fantastic that you're giving me the feedback that you like it. And you're helping me see where we could go with the product roadmap. So, Mohsen, where are you going with the product?
We currently working on further features on the automation. Particularly, we now have a substantial amount of data collected from our customers, and with their consent, now we are working on methods that are even faster than our current methods, based on machine learning and AI, looking at the historic data of buildings and how we can learn from them to even make better, if you like, more accurate models and in a faster way. So that these are the things that we're currently working on.
Okay. And have you discovered any kind of unexpected benefits or ancillary benefits that have opened your eyes to a possible extension of your product?
Most of the clients that we've had are things that you expect from indoor modeling, but I think the most interesting project that we were involved as part of the consortium, big consortium, was a modeling of a school building that had multi-purpose. One of the purposes was emergency management, sort of safety of the school, and generally we don't see what is next after the digital twin. So where things end up, the client gets the digital twin and they use it for something. We don't necessarily always know what the details are, but in this particular project, it was interesting that the 3D model, the laser scan we got from another company, we created the 3D model, and then that on that 3D model, there was different, if you like, routing technologies and finding best way to evacuate the building and different scenarios. So that was really end-to-end application of digital twin in public safety and emergency management.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the classic uses for a model, for something that is a version of the real world, but inside a computer environment that you can control. You can run scenarios, you can play with different options and different choices and figure out which one is optimal, and do that conveniently from a desk without having to do the real life experimentation.
That's right. That is if you like, one of the premises of digital twin. So you create the digital representation of the real world. So you can not only understand how it looks like and what is involved in digital twin, but also you can run experiments and how it will look like if I do these changes, different scenario. And that's something that already happens in other industries as well. So it's not only the architecture and design industry. So digital twins obviously have a wider application.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Mohsen. Thanks for talking to us about Faramoon. Anycie, let's have a chat about Archistar. Can you please give us your elevator pitch?
Sure. So Akistar is a digital platform that helps you instantly assess development sites and find out where you can and should build. So property developers, architects, and builders all use Akistar to gain insight into all the planning and regulation controls for a property. They use it to mitigate risk by reviewing flood, bushfire, and heritage layers on a site. You can understand the nearby environment, looking at points of interest, schools, major roads, electricity lines, that sort of. And once you have actually found the site, you can then start building. So you can design on your site digitally, you can generate 3D buildings. And on those building designs, those concept designs, you can review sunlight exposure, shadows, and ventilation controls, plus a few more under the belt there. But yeah, so I guess once you're there, from there you can check compliance. So you can say, okay, is this building comply with this certain planning code? Does it not? And if not, where does it not comply and what can I do to help that out? And from there, you can run feasibilities on the fly. And so get instant feasibility and then submit that design for approval directly from the platform. So yes, it's all about kind of speeding up that initial site finding and design application process.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what's the old school way to do this? I imagine it's a little bit similar to what Simon was saying. People have to actually go out to site and hurdle fences and hold measuring sticks up to trees and things of this nature.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So yeah, so it's so originally people had to, like Mohsen said, you have to go to a site. Firstly, you have to find a site that you're looking for, looking at all the different planning controls from the government. There's hundreds of different documents that say, on this site, you can build this, and this site, you can build that. And it's actually quite hard to visualize what information is there. And then from there, you have to say, okay, I'd like this sort of site, but what site is actually available? Is it for sale? Is it not for sale? How do I find this? To get that data, it's pretty tricky. You have to look at multiple websites, different tools, and they're quite expensive as well. The money does add up. So with Archistar, we pull that all into one system and offer kind of a cheaper rate as well to get you across the line. But once you're there, you say, okay, what can I build on this site? And you tried a few different building designs, manually check if they're compliant. We say, is the sunlight correct on all these apartments? Is there enough ventilation? Do I meet these standards? And only then can you submit that in and go from there. And once you do submit it in, it does take a while to get back any feedback. Am I pass or not pass? What's compliant? What's not compliant? It might be before you get any kind of feedback. Then you repeat that process and go again. So the way we kind of work at Akistar, we really want to shorten that initial process, shift that curve from spending more time that middle kind of design phase, and get rid of the time that's spent at the initial planning and designing.
Yeah, and totally. The better the information you have before you even submit something for planning approval, it just has to be more optimal to go through that whole planning approval process rather than waiting for them to come back with questions.
Definitely. Yeah.
And would it be right in saying a lot of the planning or most of the planning rules in Australia are state by state based?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yes. So a lot of them are state by state, and then there are some that you go into a development control plan where you go further into lot by lot. So for example, you might be on a specific lot and they say on this road, your setback has to be this much, and then on this specific road your setback has to be that much. It can get really down into the details on there as well, and that all completely affects that design process.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you've built Archistar and the technology that you've built into it?
Yeah, so the way Archistar works, it's a digital platform, so it's all web-based, all cloud-based. We have one single application, and it's all based around a core mapping. What we do is we overlay property data. We capture and process and store that data, including planning rules, zoning data, contours, market data, and so on. And then from that, we collect that data into our database. We run more than a few algorithms that allow you to predict sites that have property development potential. And from there, once we help you find that site, a lot of the way we work is actually helping you very quickly find that site. So rather than spending months looking for a site or looking through, say, 60 odd sites, we can process thousands of sites in a few minutes or even seconds and help you really shrink down that process. But once you have found that site, we can generate building designs on them and check them for compliance, all using different generated methods and algorithms that we developed internally.
And do you have a typical customer or an ideal customer, and what's your go-to-market approach?
Yeah, we do. So mainly we use property developers, architects, and builders on our platform. With COVID, we even get people like valuers and that coming in and looking digitally at all these different options that they can. Like yourself and Mohsen said, prior to this, everything's turned online. The more you can't actually get out and have a look at any piece of land, the more important and this digital platform works for them. So, our goal personally is to be the #1 property research platform in Australia. And since we launched in 2018, we've grown pretty rapidly, achieving 100% revenue growth year on year for the last 3 years, which is exciting. And we have people like CBRE, Frasers Property, Mirvac, Stocklands, Colliers International, and a few more under our belt. But I think the main thing that kind of comes out of it when we have the go to market, we get some pretty clear results coming from it. So what we tell people and that we found is that per project, our customers are saving around 30 grand after quantifying time spent and consultant costs. We found that they're running their projects 30 times faster than finding sites manually. And the return is around 10 times. So they're maximizing their investments with our Akistar workflow. And our aim is to really even speed that up even further. So we're constantly talking to our clients, finding how we can simplify the method down and speed up that process for them.
What are some of the commercial reasons, or what's some of the positive feedback you're getting from people like CBRE as to why they work with you? And can I slightly flip that question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get objections?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think all companies do, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do. So we have had, quite a few positive feedback. Some people say they're able to look up planning controls and show clients what we can or we can't do within minutes. Some people say it saves up to 6 hours per week of finding time, development time. And others have said the platform has doubled or even tripled their productivity, which is all really great. Other kind of negative things, I guess, I'm sure there's a few, but I guess, maybe like, I don't even know, to be honest.
Because I suppose one of the questions is change is hard. Change is hard. The real estate and property industry, I think, change for some reason seems to be harder than it is in other industries than, for example, finance.
Yeah, definitely. I know definitely with our architects, when it comes to design concepts and that sort of thing, if they something that it's not enough detail, that's not really what we're aiming for, full detailed designs really anyway. We kind of market them more as design concepts, which is a lot easier because it's a lot easier to say, okay, building in this direction with this number of apartments would work on this site, more these number of townhouses and so on would work here. And we're not really looking to go into full detail. This is a complete final design that you can upload. But yeah, so it just depends really how we market the product and on how it comes back as feedback as well.
Yeah. And have you discovered any unexpected use cases or ancillary benefits that might not have originally been envisaged?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Since we have all the kind of planning rules in our database, we update them frequently. We found that we've got a lot of interest from government bodies to get our technology and start using it. And this is where the whole compliance section of our business really popped up, especially through COVID and not being able to sites and that sort of thing. But we found that, government bodies such as the Victorian state government, and we've helped them significantly reduce planning approval times and digitally transform that planning approval process. And the idea there is that we can bring more speed, more certainty and transparency by digitizing those planning rules and being able to automatically check if a building that is uploaded and assessed is compliant or not. Which sections are and which sections aren't, and getting a really clear feedback loop between the customer and that governing.
I think sometimes some of the people who are possible objectors to property technology are people who are actually scared that their own job is now going to possibly be redundant, or that they're going to have to find something else to apply their skills and experience to if the technology can just keep getting better and better. And in terms of getting better and better, what's coming up for Archistar on the product roadmap?
Yeah, we have a busy few years coming up, but one thing we're really focusing on doing is listening to our customer feedback. So we're currently in the process of simplifying our user experience. So making it really easy for any mum and dad or any kind of user that wants to come on and use the platform to do that. And in addition, we have a few big projects with those governing bodies, really upping our compliance, checking tools in the few years ahead.
Wonderful. Thanks, Anycie. I should say, for people joining us live, if you would like to ask a question to the panel, you can use the Q&A feature. You can also drop a comment into the chat. I've got a couple of extra questions. Simon, if I could come back to you, please. Where does the name LARKI?
Land surveying, architecture, real estate knowledge on the internet, but it's also a lark is a bird that is used in Shakespeare and religious texts to signify the bringer of new things. And they're up in the clouds, so it kind of seemed relevant. And an E at the end, you got to have an E on the end if you're a tech company, or, you know.
An I, yes. Is there anything we haven't covered yet that you'd really like people to know about?
Yeah, we're going to do another round of investment towards the end of the year. So any investors out there, reach out. We have data that you can buy online. We've got a 25% off at the moment for the streetscape and the aerial data, $124, including GST. Downloaded in an hour is just like unheard of in the industry for LiDAR data. And I suppose just to clarify the difference between something like, say, the Archistar's 3D or Nearmap or some of these other tools, is that we bring detail and accuracy. It's not like a block model. You'll see branches and leaves on trees. It's like really detailed, and that kind of level of detail is really important for architects and property developers, because things like chimneys, which wouldn't usually be captured, or heritage or pitch roofs, they actually do affect what you can develop. You have to have clearances around things like power lines and trees and chimneys and heritage. And so all of this stuff is really important to understand. And we get asked sometimes about the kind of ESG or, environmental, social governance, or ESD, ecologically sustainable design component of what we do. And the simple answer is that if you don't know in detail what is there actually on your site, things like trees and cliffs, like how can you design precisely and take into consideration any of these kind of factors in a sophisticated way? And I mean, the answer is you can't. So it's everything out there at the moment is very back of the envelope, very kind of rough guesstimate kind of thing. And like we mentioned before, poor quality in equals poor quality out. And sure, it's getting better all the time, but really Laki is a big step up in terms of getting that really, really high detail in a really easy and quick and affordable way.
Okay. And what's the best way for people to find out more about Laki and also to connect with you personally?
Yeah, they could go on larki.com.au. They could on Instagram and Facebook and all those sorts of places. LinkedIn's probably the best one for this audience, but yeah, or just info@larki.com.au. I'll see that one.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Mohsen, if I could come back to you, please. Where does the name Faramoon come from?
Yes, look, my background is Iranian, so I have that Iranian background, and Faramoon is Farsi, Persian name for dimension. So that's where the name comes from. Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything we haven't covered about Faramoon that you'd really like people to know?
I think we've covered most of the things, but I'll invite the attendees to jump on our website, www.faramoon.io. There's a button, meet with us. You can connect in that way. I'm also on LinkedIn. Happy to have a chat. We provide a special, if you like, discount for our customers, first-time users of the system. So you can benefit from that. Lovely.
And Anycie, Akistar, where does the name Akistar come from?
Yeah, it has to do with, I think initially it was Architect Star Rating, but then we've expanded since then, but we've kept the name. So yeah, that was the initial, because 5-6 years ago when we did begin, we were very heavily on looking specifically building designs and that sort of thing there. But we've definitely since then, but the name stuck. So yeah.
And is there anything we haven't already covered about Akistar that you'd really like people to
We've been through a lot, but I think you're just definitely really honing in on being able to help people during this, hard time with the pandemic, being able to help people assess sites more efficiently and remotely. So removing that need to be on site and do all that sort of things there. And I guess on top of that, we're really excited about what's happening with the government body and digitally transforming these industries and seeing how far we can take it.
Yeah, I think we've all just become very used to working from home most of the time, I think, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anycie. What's the best way for people to find out more about Archistar and also to connect with you personally?
Yeah, we can connect with me through LinkedIn directly, or you can get a free demo on our website, so archistar.ai/demo, and through there you can subscribe to our newsletter as well.
Wonderful. No questions have come through from the live audience, but thank you to our live audience for joining us today and staying. It's been my pleasure to host the panel today and find out more about 3D and digital twins and laser scanning and BIM and LiDAR and all those great things. Thank you very much, Simon Cooks from Laki, for joining us. Thank you very much, Mohsen Kalantari from Faramoon.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you very much to Anycie Barakat from Akistar.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you again to everyone for joining us. If you don't already follow us, please do follow PropTech Association Australia on LinkedIn. We will make the recording and some other information available about this panel. And also we always post and use LinkedIn to advertise the upcoming panels. Remember, it's the 4th Tuesday of every month live at 12 p.m. I'm Jennifer Harrison. I'm the Vice President of the PropTech Association Australia. Thanks very much for being with us, and I'll see you next time.